Hello. The purpose of this video is to explain the design process in architectural design. When you land an architectural project, um, you typically get a project from bidding, for government projects. You typically submit, hey, I want to design this one, and you would submit that together with your competitive professional fee, scope of work, experience, past projects, and all that stuff. So you could get a project from bidding, you can get a project from referrals, from friends, from other colleagues, from even your consultants. Engineers would refer them, hey, I have this project that needs an architect, and I'm referring this to you. Or you could have a direct acquaintance with the owner, and you would get that project through that one. So you would get awarded the project because you're a good architect. You get that reputation of being a good architect. Or you might have very competitive fees, and we are all professionals, and our fees may be competitive, and that's another piece of why you can get a project. Or you could land a project because you're part of a group that's collaborating with each other. Now, when you do land a project, you go and sit down with your client and you get their lists of needs and wants. So, I want this room size, I want these kinds of rooms, I want this room to be besides this other room. I'm gonna have like 5 people in this room. I'm gonna have this room to be just an office solo and stuff like that. Okay, so you're gonna list all of them down, and then you're going to create a program matrix or a programming matrix. So in architecture, when we finally get the needs and wants of our clients, we list them down and we create this matrix, and we create these intersections over here, and we put some symbols on here, and the symbol here, dot, means that they are immediately adjacent. That means that the room is directly besides each other. So if we look at these dots, the reception area must be exactly or directly besides the interview station. Okay, it must also be besides the seminar room. Okay, and then the asterisk means that it's important to be besides or next to this room, but it's not really that important or necessary. So the reception area, it would be nice to have that directly with the director, but you could pass a hallway to get to the director, and that's what important adjacency means. Okay, you want to go through and pass a hallway, whereas if this one is a reception and it is immediately adjacent to the interview, that means that there is no hallway to go through. The reception room or the reception area has a door leading to the interview station. So that's what it means. So you could do this handwritten, or you could use a programming matrix template. Also here, you might also put in your square footage. So this reception area, I want it to be 250 square feet. The interview 220, all that other stuff. Okay. You can also put in some additional items here that is important to know, so that when you are ready to plan, all you're going to do is look at this matrix and you're ready to plan. Okay, so this is a programming matrix. I think there is a separate class, although I don't know if there's a programming matrix class in Sac City. It may appear on a four-year university. Okay, so once you're finished with this programming matrix, you may want to do a spacing or planning diagram, just like bubble diagrams, and you create these bubbles or circles or squares. It doesn't matter what the shape is, and you create here connections that would indicate a direct connection. You can even use thick markers to show a direct connection. So here, in the reception area is directly connected to the seminar room, is directly connected to the lecture room. This one is directly connected to the study room, but there is a hallway crossing them, and that goes to bathrooms probably, or kitchens. And these arrows that with dash line, that means that you have access to the outsides, just like reception area has access to the public lobby or directly outside. Okay, so this is a planning or a spacing diagram, and you can't plan yet until you know how much of the lot you can occupy, right? So you just have this one sort of just a very rough idea of which rooms are going to be next to each other, but what you need to do is you need to do a little bit of research in order for you to really start something, and that research starts with your site. So when you have your site information, you always want to do a site visit. Probably take measurements. The topography is important. If the lot is on a hill going down, it's flat. If something needs to be filled in, like if there's like an existing pond, if there are trees on the lot, how big the trees are, those are important things. You can get this information by doing your own site visit. You can go to Google Maps, but sometimes Google Maps are like 4 years outdated. But usually for big projects, there would be a surveyor involved. Surveyor will prepare a plan that tells you exactly where things are. If there's like a drain, they will give you a dimension where the drain is. If there are existing curbs, big trees, any fire hydrants, or any easements on it. Or you can get this from existing civil plans. So most of the time, architects would have like a renovation project, and then there would be existing civil plans that the old architect and their engineers have submitted to the city, and you can get copies of those. Okay. You can also look at the parcel map, and this would be from the assessor's office at the same time. A parcel map, typically go to the assessor's office and look at their big binders or blueprints. But the assessor's office nowadays have like a website that you can look at, and you can find information like what is the zoning, and there would sometimes be measurements, or you can measure it from the parcel viewer. And if you own, or if the owner has the deed to the lot, or is um, a legal instrument that tells you the description of the lot, the size of the lot, so you can get the information from there. But before you can even do actual planning, this is not planning, this is just sort of a bubble diagram, but this is not a floor plan, it's just a rough planning. Before you can do any planning or actual floor plan, you need to get site information, okay? Because lots are governed by zoning laws and regulations, so there are codes, okay? So you have to do your research, you have to get the info of your lot, you have to get it from the city, if it's a city lot, or if it's from a rural area, you're gonna get it from the county office. Most lots have been assigned a zone, rural lands, agricultural zone, and if you wanted to put something there, you have to get like a variance. Zoning regulations, they tell us what can or we can't do to the lot. Okay, so because you don't want to put like an oil refinery besides directly a residential. So what they do is they try to separate those areas, and they would have to separate that by assigning lands a particular zone. Okay, so another thing that we need to think about is public or utility easements. So utility and public easements are like you own the lot or the land, but there is a portion inside the land that you cannot build on, and those are called easements. So it could be utility easement. That means that there may be a water main or an electrical main or something under the ground, and so they would tell you that, hey, you can't put anything 10 feet from the property. Like this one here, just an example. There's this lot that was subdivided into two lots, and if you subdivide it in the middle going straight from the road, you're gonna end up with two skinny lots. So the previous owner might have divided it parallel to the road, but they have to provide a right of way. So even though this lot the right of way is part of parcel B. This is a public right of way, and you can't build anything in it. Okay. Um, some easements are governed not by things under the ground, but over it, like power lines. And they would say that you cannot build anything higher than, 14 feet from the fence line, because there is a easement, power line easement above it. Okay, so that's easements. You might own the lot, but there are portions where you cannot do anything on top of or dig. Municipal codes are local laws that are enacted by the city, by the city council. So they are usually enacted by an ordinance, and you can find these codes. It could be as simple as how many chickens you can have in your lot, but we're talking about design here, so they will tell you, or the municipal code based on site development plans will tell you your zoning, will tell you the use of the land, will tell you your setbacks, how many parking you need, and all that stuff. So it's a little convoluted, complicated, and but that's part of the design process that you have to go through. Okay. Now there's also a state level code, because ordinances are typically like city level or county level, and then you have the state level code, which is called the building code in California. It's called Title 24. There's a misnomer that Title 24 is all about energy, and that's not. There's like, I think, I can't remember if it's 13 sections or 14 sections, but one of them is about the building code. And building code would tell you and dictate um, widths of hallways, construction of walls, and the reason why they dictate that one is because they wanted to have a building that is safe for the public, that is safe in case of fire, that is designed to accommodate people with disabilities, wheelchair access, and all that other stuff. So all of those are put in the building code. And some building codes, or our California building code, will actually point to a federal level law or code. In particular, it's the Americans with Disabilities Act. We're going to discuss that sometime later when we go to actual planning, so we're going to have a separate lecture on it. Now, when you have all of those codes, you have to consider them when you, before you plan the building. You have to plan how much of the site you can use. So you have to consider the building code, you have to consider the footprint of the building. That means that how much land will be occupied in the building. If there are any parking requirements, that's going to be from municipal codes, that's going to be from special planning districts, where to put the driveways, how far you're supposed to put the building from your property line. If there's any shading, that means you have to put trees before you can get approved or plan out where the trees will go. Some jurisdictions have actual heights, because if you're in a hill and you had a terrific view of, let's say, the Bay Bridge, and somebody in front of you wants to build like a 3-story building, then it blocks your view. So the city council, as a local ordinance, will enact view restrictions, where you cannot erect a building that's going to block this much height from a lot higher uphill or something like that. Okay, so some municipal codes would designate roof lines, and this would not be part of planning a site, but these are things that you need to consider, and including easements. Now, sorry, shadow study is something that you might need to do for lands that are large in area. There is zones and times of year where you want the sun to shine on, or you want to put a window on this particular time of year so that you can have sun whenever the sun shines. Or you might not want to have a window on a side of the building because the sun always shines on there at like 12 p.m. So you might need to do a shadow study, and that's just a massing study, and you create that using a 3D software, and then you turn on the shadow and you put in your actual location. And I want to go through this with you, but really quickly on a separate activity. Okay. Um, so the design process is really first you after interviewing your client of their needs and wants, you're gonna go through this programming um, phase, and you are doing that one for two things. Number one, you want to do a site plan. Okay, so before you can do a schematic design of your site plan, you have to do the programming, and then you can go also and do a building layout based on the programming you created before you can do a schematic design. So uh, now when you already have a design, you will have to send that to the client for approval. And if the client doesn't approve or wants to do some changes, then you go back to your schematic. And this could be a back and forth between your design and the client. The same thing goes for the site plan. You want to get your site plan approved by the client, and this could be going back and forth between you. And finally, when the client approves, then you would go to your design development phase. So your site plan, if it gets approved, it will go to the design development phase. Floor plan, the building layout, when it gets approved, it'll go to the design development phase. Um, and that could also be back and forth with your client, especially when you go to the elevation. You want to show, hey, this is what the building would look like, and then the client says, oh yeah, that's really cool, but I wanted like a more modern design. So this is like a back and forth again. When you get approved, then you finally go and create your blueprints, or what we call the construction documents. Okay, so this is basically the design process that goes into an architectural practice. Starts with programming before we could even do some floor plans. So we're gonna go through some programming first, and before we do that, we need to do a little bit of research. So you're gonna have an activity to do some research before we can do some uh, um, schematic design. Okay, and that would be your next activity.